I don't very often do groundwork with Anya, but I've just brought her in. And Bear's decided to come in too. It's usually the other way round. I'm usually working somebody else and Anya comes in and decides to roll. But today it's Teddy Bear. Is that it? Are you done now? He's also pooped outside the friendship barn again, which is so disrespectful. But I think he does that only because Annie always pees outside the front. Bye, Bear. Oh, 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 what was that? I don't know what that was about. He's gone. Aside from doing a little bit of work with Annie in the arena, and Micah as well this afternoon, I spent most of today in the office doing some admin tasks, getting things sent out, getting a few bits and pieces up to date on the website. I've also been looking more into the plans for the dream, because we've got the meeting in April with Richard and with Jill. And I'm just out in the barn field right now because one of the things that's quite high on the agenda over the next couple of weeks is moving everybody, moving all the girls and Hidda into this that we call the barn field. And you can see the, if I can get the angle right, there's the farm up there. So we call this the barn field because there's an old barn just up the top here that used to be owned by our great-grandfather. Our father sold it a number of years ago to enable him to do some repairs on the house. So this field has always just stayed as the barn field. And it's a beautiful, beautiful space with this wonderful woodland at the bottom. But every spring before we move the horses in here, we have to have a look and check whether there's badger holes, because especially down in the bottom part over here, we have over the last few years had some very large holes appearing. Now we don't, obviously it's illegal to do anything with the badgers and we wouldn't want to anyway, but obviously we need to make those areas safe so that when the horses come in here, they don't put their legs down them. The other area that needs a bit of attention this year is this bit of fencing up here, and that's where I'm just going to go up to have a look at it to see what we're going to need to get in to get it all repaired and safe. But I was talking to Hol about it earlier, and what we may do, because it's all posts and rail at the moment, which tends to get quite rotten, is we might actually just replace the posts in the ground and put electric wire over it this time with an energizer. So as we've said before, you know, the general maintenance around the farm is something that we do struggle to keep on top of because there's a never-ending list of them. And this bit of fencing has done us well for several years, but unfortunately all the posts in the ground have gone quite rotten now. And we've propped it up for a few years. And, you know, we could potentially prop this up again for another year. But if at all possible, it might be quite nice. Well, it would be very nice to get this redone. These posts here are actually ones that were recycled from a client of ours, many years ago. I think probably about 7 or 8 years ago. So they've done really well because she used them in her land, and then we went and picked them up when she had to take them all out. So they've had a good amount of use. This little bit along here, I think I did a bit of a bodge on it last year, so it's fairly sturdy. I don't think that's going anywhere. And they don't tend to pester this fence line. Okay, there's some bits there. That's going to need repairing. So Hol and I are going to get out at some point this week, if the weather's kind enough to us, and see what we can make of it for this year. As I've said before in a lot of the other videos, it's all about prioritising what jobs we should be spending any funds on. And some are more important than others. Others we just have to make do with. And that's absolutely fine. You know, that's life on a farm. You know, if you try to spend out on every job that needs doing, then, well, it would be impossible to do. Not unless there was a bottomless pit of money. So we try and be sensible about it and just do the necessary. But as you can see, it's a very, very beautiful field, and it's wintered quite well. Those rougher patches down here are where they use as toilet areas, so the grass is always a little bit longer there. But I generally harrow it a couple of times during the year just to spread any muck around, because it wouldn't be practical to poo pick all of our fields. It does get quite boggy down on this bottom bit here, so it just needs to dry out a little bit more before we get all of the girls and Hidda across here. And what we're going to do, all being well, as long as we can see that the forecast is good, we're planning to live stream to you when we move the horses across, because it's always such a spectacle. So I'm going to probably live stream from my phone and the GoPro, which I can do in conjunction with each other, and Hol will get some more video. It would be really nice if I could get the drone up at the same time, but I don't know whether I can control a GoPro, my phone and a drone at the same time. But maybe we'll get Bailey in on it, because he's flown the drone a couple of times. So we're planning to get you some really nice live footage as well as some recorded footage, because every year it's one of the highlights of the year, moving a lot of them from one field to another. So it's always in spring and then again in autumn, and you might have seen some of the video footage that we shared of them moving into their winter turnout when it was nice and lush and green, and of course now it's all brown and poached, but it'll grow again. So this is the area where we tend to get a few badger holes, just over on the right here. I'm pretty sure last spring there weren't any, but we'll go and check anyway. I love this tree, and it's always really pretty when the horses are running across the beck over there and under this tree in its spring colours, although there's not much sign of any growth on it yet. This little bit that I've got fenced off over here, I did several years ago, because there was a whole series of badger holes back here. So it's a bit Heath Robinson, because it's just a bit of rope, it's not electrified, but the horses have never messed with it. But you can see here, that looks like a fairly active, relatively active area. I suspect that that's in use at the moment. And there's another one just over the back here. That looks like some fresh earth having been moved around. Yeah, that's definitely a well-used badger hole. But this is good because this area is sectioned off, and it's only really if they've decided to dig holes over here that we'll have to look at fencing more areas. This area just before they cross over the beck does get very, very boggy, as you can see here, and that's why we get a lot of these reeds growing. But there's a good track just along here that they tend to walk along or trot along, and they're very sensible. They know which bits are safe for them. Look at that beautiful root. This is another of my favourite parts of the farm. And I know it's Tamara's as well. It's a really secluded little woodland. And we often get deer hiding away through here. But we have all these beautiful rocky outcrops, which is, you know, the plus side of living on rock. It has its downsides in trying to get fence posts in, but many ups as well. This is from the other side. So where we were was just over the top there a minute ago. And this will all look very, very different in the spring and the summer. But you can hear all the birdies now. All getting ready for the breeding season and for nesting. That true sign of spring. And again, it's nice just to stand and enjoy the peace every now and again. But then every time Tamara and I look at the house, we see another big maintenance job. The whole house needs painting. It's looking rather tired. But that's a very, very big job. Not something that Hol and I would fancy tackling right now. In other news, Tamara's had to get an emergency plumber out because we have new workaware who's come to stay for a few weeks to help with bramble clearing. So he's gone into the caravan. He's called Simon. I don't know yet whether he's going to be happy for me to film him, but if he is, we will certainly introduce you. But as is always the case with caravans, there was plumbing issues, so that's had to be fixed very quickly today, with Tamara having to drive over to Bardsey to get spare parts. And then we've got little Mabel, because she's a bit tired from having spent some time outside now, so she's having an evening up here, joined by little Floppy Doos. Floppy had a night in over the weekend because he was tired, but as he and Mabel get on really well, we're just going to let them have a quiet night up here together, because little Angel Eyes, Hannes, was also very tired because he's spent a couple of nights out, and of course he's been in here keeping Mabel company for a while, so it does tire them when they're out 24/7. But they've got lots of haylage for the night. That noise in the background is Hol just doing the final day blowing of the yard, tidying up. And then Bailey's disappeared. He has a bucket there because he was weeding what has become his wildflower garden. I was trying to persuade him to get it weeded so that we can get the seeds in there, so that we've got a nice pretty area there again this summer. Are you going to get back to weeding now?
Well, probably not.
No?
Later.
Okay. And then Hol, who that noise was coming from, is clearly doing things in style today, but you'll see more of this hat in her video that she's done today, which is going to be...
It's a fire engine noise.
She's a bit
Okay.
fresh, isn't she?
She is a bit... She wasn't with Spesh today, she was with Yodel.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, look. You're a little bit wonky. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Do you want to say goodnight to everyone?
Good night, everyone.
It's sardines all round for everyone tonight. There's Twix and Dee. And I'm just going to take some through to MK in the office as well.